in my profession, a process is just the machination of what a plan that someone has set in place. This election is INEC's baby. So it'll be safe to assume that what is playing out is INEC's plan. But then it's not safe in the practical Nigerian parlance, because it would then mean that you're saying whatever we've seen so far was a deliberate plan by INEC. Now, before you go into an election, before you commence a process, let's not say an election, before you commence any process, you're supposed to have a desktop review of what you're going to do, what possible hazards exist, what can truncate the success of your process. You are committed to the success of your process as a professional. So you must have factored in the risk that you will face, and then you have told yourself, okay, you do what we call a pre-task risk assessment. So you understand the risk, you do a risk mapping, knowing that the risks are not the same in all the areas you'll be dealing with, and then you set out to put measures in place to curb this identified risk. The question will be, INEC, did we do that? Front-end due diligence, was it done? If we did that, why do we have some of these lapses that we have? I'm not saying the entire process was nothing to write home about. To be objective, we can't really say that. There were places, I voted, I went to my polling unit, we shared drinks, we were happy with each other. Nobody wanted to know which party you were voting for. We voted and all went back home. But then at the end of the day, we had incidents. And the thing is, we don't value life in Nigeria largely, because if you value life, then if you carry out a process and one person dies, you don't say the process was okay. What is the cost of the life of one man? And so we've had people who were even staff of INEC itself who were dead, who were shot dead in this process. That, for me, says a lot about what plans were on ground to ensure that these elections were safe. So, and I get very emotional each time people die, because, again, in my profession, we believe that all accidents are preventable. And that is because all accidents have a cost. So if in your planning process you have factored in the cost, what can cause an accident, and you have worked to an extent where you have, put measures in place to prevent these accidents from happening, then we can have a process where people don't die. We are carrying out a sweet thing, an election, to bring people in to make life better for people. If they die, who are we having an election for?
Well, Mr. Apong, when you look at our process, I'll come again to the process. Yeah. There are some who say it's too militarized. We have too many security people around. Yeah. And then on the day itself, you then see the burning and all that. People then say, well, where was the security? So I don't know, where is the balance in our process? By 2023, are we still going to have all the forces on the road, NSPDC, everybody, just because we want to vote?
It's a very good question, thank you. It's my sincere hope that at the end of this process, we will sit down and do what we call a root cause analysis. Root cause analysis, we go back to the root of the problem. So we have different methods for doing it. I would like to believe that INEC knows the right people to engage, to carry out such a process. We go back, okay, 5 people died here. Oh, ballot boxes were burnt here. What caused it? What caused it? The follow-up question to that until we're able to get to the root of the matter, and then we're able to deal with it. But then, not to sound like I just dropped from space. You know that if in Nigeria, if you have to ask such questions, you're going to get to a point where you will ask to go and mind your business. You'll be asked to go and mind your business. And at that point, there might just be places where the only safe response is thank you, sir.
But Akmal, staying with you before we come to know the matter of safety here. Now, if you get to that point where you say you're told to mind your business, you do your thing, you go away. But does that stop one from thinking about how to be safe, or what should be done in terms of safety during and beyond the elections? Because we hear of cases of violence here and over. How does a voter stay safe?
Yeah, for the voter, I was personally involved in some pre-election campaigns where I like to take up such courses on a personal basis, because we're in an environment where the little you can do, you should do it to save life. So places around me, I was able to tell them, look, don't have an argument with anybody over who you want to vote for and what you expect or what powers one person has that the other person doesn't have. There's no point having this argument because usually the fight starts from when I start selling my candidate to you and I make certain statements, like during the presidential election, I heard a couple of comments that would quote what Trump said and why you shouldn't vote because of that and all of these were the things that started the fights in some of the places. So you want to tell people, please avoid this kind of argument and then stay in touch with information. There's a lot of information. Thankfully, even channels, if we go onto the internet, you don't have to be sitting in front of your TV to access information. Just on your phone, you can find out what is going on where. So during the campaigns, when people were firing in different places, while rallies were going on, if you are in touch with information, you can stay away from those places and all of that. As much as possible, what I will advise voters in Nigeria during elections is find out ahead of yourself what is going on where you are going. So you get there, you don't have, there's one business that has taken you there to vote. Don't argue with people. Pick your ballot papers, vote, and then proceed to other things. Then apart from that, within families, that most of what I'm saying is what I really see, I've really seen within this period. Within families, they are divided among which parties to vote for.
Yeah, certainly.
And I'm very happy that channels is more like a one-stop shop for the right information. People have said here that there's really no ideology. There's no point for you to kill somebody because he's going to vote someone from the other party.
But one of our guests yesterday said the ideology that is common among them is power.
Power.
Yes, the acquisition of power.
At the end of the day, the reason why that person wants power is not because of you or your brother or anybody. So there's no point. Just do your... I don't vote in elections because most times I don't vote because of the candidates. I vote because I owe my country a civic responsibility. So I have to exercise it. Don't vote because of anybody. And if you want to contest election, don't contest because people are contesting. Contest because there's something wrong you need to fix in Nigeria.
And that you know how to.
And that you know how to.
Or you know someone that knows how to.
Or, well, if you know someone that knows how to, you need to get across to the person.
Indeed, indeed. Shamsuddin Yusuf in our Abuja studios. Again, you've just listened now, and people, because now the elections finally are reaching some kind of denouement. We're getting results, final results. We've got 3 now from the 6 we are anticipating, barring court cases. So we're now taking a look at a number of the other salient points that accompany this. The voting process now, which is what Mr. Akpong has just spoken to. Do you think that, at least if the whole process wasn't right, that aspect, the connect between the people who are voting and what eventually happens in government, has now been well established?
Sorry, can you come again?
I said, we are taking a look at the process. We've talked a lot about voting, the act of voting, and what transpired in collation of results and so on. But has the nexus been established now between the voting, who you vote for, how you make up your mind about who you vote for, and what eventually happens in governance and those who are entrusted with it?
First, I think I can't respond to that answer without critically examining what happened within the process, because electorate can come out on the day of election to cast a vote about what is most fundamental in terms of the outcome reflecting, the electorate choice of individual who voted on election day. Depends on what happened within the process.
No, that was not my question. Sorry, Shamsuddin Yusuf, that was not my question. The question I'm asking is that, do you think the voters know the nexus, that is the relationship between what their vote does?
Okay.
Aha.
Oh, okay. Well, if I get you right, we're still talking about civic education, probably voter education. Well, I think we still have a lot of things to do. A lot of still comes to the vote, but the anger that we see people express on a daily basis is mirrors what the perception is about whether the election, the choice they make on election day counts in terms of what the outcome of the election is. So I would say a lot of citizens still believe that the process is actually a sham. Nothing actually works. They come out to vote in an election, but it's always quite unfortunate that who they vote for, the electoral choice, doesn't really matter when it comes to the results, of the election. Whereas we have some people who doesn't really give a damn, or what is most fundamental to them, it's the candidate whom they vote for is declared as a winner. And that really explains sometimes the fact that some of the voters who vote on election day does not really understand what it takes for a candidate to emerge as the winner on election day. I think on this platform we've constantly mentioned the fact that there are constitutional provisions that guides the declaration of a candidate as the winner. And one of those is that the candidate for governorship election must win at least a third of the existing local governments in that state. And that means that despite the fact that you vote for someone, does not really mean that the person should emerge if the person even has a majority vote, but not have won the two-thirds majority of the entire vote in the state. So I think there's still a lot of things to do as a country in terms of voter education. And one of the key things that we need to also examine when we start talking about the electoral choice is what actually informed that electoral choice in the first place. And I think the experience I've had in doing this for several years has really shown that voters vote for electorate, for a candidate for so many reasons. And which performance sometimes, which is also depends on the location and the level of education of the voters, it does not really come as first. One, we've talked about the issues around prebendalism. We've talked about the fact that people vote on the basis of ethnicity, people vote on the basis of religion, on certain divide, on that key factors that divide us as a country, and that actually sometimes inform who we vote for. But in a democracy, when we say that within the context of developmental democracy, it is very important that voters should actually vote for a candidate based for those who is seeking re-election based on the performance of the candidate in an election. But for those who are not seeking for re-election, like some of the guests mentioned a few minutes ago, what is very fundamental is the person knowing what the societal challenges is and has that capacity and capability to formulate policies that will respond to those challenges. And having a basic understanding of this is very fundamental and should be a major driver of what the choice of voters should be. But we live in a country whereby political communication is quite a very challenging issue. Even if you have the best ideas, you are very innovative, you're very inventful, you can drive that process to ensure development and ensure that the whole idea of developmental democracy comes to play. If you don't have the capacity of using a platform to drive your message down to the people who will actually vote for you, is a challenge. And we've seen in several reports in the lead up to these elections that there is usually a challenge with having access to media platforms to articulate what your policy priorities are. I think if I have to speak for the smaller political parties, aside the two leading parties, it actually was a very big challenge for them in these particular elections. And even for the two leading parties, it also predicates on which party is actually a ruling party in a particular state. It determines how the person, the candidate would have that leverage of using existing platform. We talk about the radio, we talk about the television stations and so on and so forth. And even have the economic wherewithal to push, to be able to provide enough financial resources to engage on traditional and social media. So these are some of the things that we need to talk about, and when we're looking at the choice that citizens make, because information is very important. When we talk about manifesto or agenda, is merely to serve the information need of the people. But in a situation whereby one does not have a platform to disseminate this information to citizens, it becomes a very big challenge. And all these factor into determining what the electoral choice of a vote of an electorate would be on election day.